Say it with me now.
J-E-T-S. Jets, 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 Jets.
And let me get this out of the way first and foremost. Let me get it off my chest. Leave it to the Jets in a season where they're expected by most reasonable people to reasonably be in the running to get the number 1 overall pick, because so many things done by that front office indicated that they were clearly in tank mode. Leave it to the Jets to screw up their golden opportunity to bang it out with the Browns to get the number 1 overall pick, or maybe worst case scenario, the Jets would have won a game or two and ended up with the number 2 overall pick in this draft. The Giants unintentionally tanked themselves to the number 2 overall pick. The Jets, because they're the Jets, can't even screw up the tank right, because that's what the Jets do, baby. Now, with that said, it's crazy because, regardless of what the Jets homers want to say or anything like that, this was a bad football team, designed to be a bad football team. There was a purpose at play here, and the roster vastly exceeded what they should have been able to do. I mean, this team went 5-11 and could have won a few more games. The coaching job that Todd Bowles did here was absolutely outstanding, which is crazy because before this 2017 season, a lot of Jets fans were maybe thinking that he should be gone. There was speculation that he might be gone. This would be the last year. He would be the first coach potentially to be fired, or he was at least on the nuclear hot seat, and all that crap never happened. Todd Bowles said, "In your eyes, bitches. I'm going to win 5 games with this team and get myself a contract extension." And you know what? It was very well deserved for Todd Bowles. I will say, I find it very crazy that the general manager, Mike Maccagnan, who assembled this crappy team, it seemed like to intentionally sabotage his coach to be able to tank to when this team ultimately didn't tank. The same guy who invested a 2nd-round pick last year on Christian Hackenberg got an extension too. Yes, he hired Todd Bowles, who showed last year he's at least some quality of coach. What that means long-term remains to be seen. But at least in 2017, he did one of the best coaching jobs in the National Football League with a 5-win team. I mean, for crying out loud, they beat 3 AFC playoff teams during the season in Jacksonville, Buffalo, Kansas City. They got 2 divisional wins out of it. 5 of their losses were by 7 points or less, so that's what I'm talking about. They had a couple of quality wins. They played some other teams tough. Had a few other games that they were in the mix for they could have potentially won. The 1-7 on the road most certainly isn't great, but at least they beat the Browns. They helped contribute to history, and for that, we say, J-E-T-S, Jets, Jets, Jets. But I still think it's insane that Mike Maccagnan got a contract extension. I understand the logistics behind why he did. Todd Bowles deserved one. Mike Maccagnan might have been worthy of being shown the door. Again, he intentionally tried to tank. I don't give a crap what anybody says. And he spent a 2nd-round pick in 2016 on Christian Hackenberg. Why the hell did he get a contract extension? A Christian Hackenberg in 2 years now, as bad as they were. They thought Christian Hackenberg was so bad that they kept trying to trot out Bryce Petty, even though everybody knows he's terrible too. Holy hell. But anyways, so what do we got going on now for the Jets? We know their GM and their head coach are there to stay. We know that this team had it tanked and cleared out a bunch of salary to be able to get into a space where they could make some moves in this upcoming offseason, and they've done that. They've got almost $81 million in salary cap space. They've got plenty of money to be able to take care of some of their own free agents. You've got Josh McCown hitting the market, Morris Claiborne hitting the market, Austin Seferian-Jenkins, Demario Davis, Coney Ely. I would expect most of those guys to be retained. I would be stunned if Josh McCown wasn't retained in 2018 to be a bridge starter, if anything else, for a young quarterback. Morris Claiborne may be brought back. Austin Seferian-Jenkins finally kind of got his crap together this year and was a playmaker in that offense. And as a result, I would be surprised if he didn't get paid big and end up staying with the Jets, because that's been a gaping void for them for a number of years, is that tight end position. And it feels like they finally got an answer. It feels like it. But you know this team still has a ton of holes, and they need to be able to go out there and get some guys to make a statement to help turn this thing around. Because 5-11 is still 5-11. This is still not a good football team. And again, frankly, the team vastly outplayed the record that they should have had to get the record that they did. So who's that statement free agent signing for them? It could be at the corner position, Malcolm Butler, Tremaine Johnson, maybe at a lesser level, Prince Amukamura, Kyle Fuller. I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets went really heavily after Malcolm Butler, especially trying to weaken a divisional foe like the New England Patriots, especially if they decide not to franchise Malcolm Butler. That would seem to be a natural fit. They will have the money to be able to pay Butler what the market's going to command. That would seem to be an area where they could potentially go. I would also expect them to go after a wide receiver in free agency, whether that's Sammy Watkins, bring him back to the AFC East. If he doesn't stick with the Rams, Jarvis Landry is a popular name you'll hear thrown out there. And while he's not a game breaker, an explosive player, he would instantly become the team's number one wide receiver even out of the slot. And he would be a consistent weapon for Josh McCown or a consistent, reliable option for a young quarterback going forward long term. And then maybe they could look at somebody at the lower levels in terms of edge rushers. It's not a great free agent class of edge rushers. Maybe they go after a Trent Murphy, a Junior Galette, a Samuel Acho. Again, not a lot there, but maybe you wait and see if the Bears cut somebody like a Pernell McPhee or other teams release players, and maybe you could swoop in and get somebody that can still contribute because they still need a contributor outside in that 3-4. But you look at the Jets. They've got a ton of cap space. They play in a major market. There's some stability there with the head coach and the general manager. It might be a little bit more of an appealing option for free agents than it has been in previous years. And I would expect the Jets to make one or two splashy signings in free agency this offseason. They should not get carried away like they did with Maccagnan a couple of years ago, where he just tried to build a team entirely through free agency, because that's insane. But you do need to make a statement or two, and I expect them to do so. But still, where the majority of the work, the lion's share of the work, the most important work is going to happen is in the NFL draft. And when you look at this team, they're in a decent position. They've got the 6th overall pick in round 1. They've got 2 second-round picks thanks to that Sheldon Richardson trade to Seattle. They've got a 3rd-round pick, 4th-round pick, 5th-round pick, 6th-round pick, 7th-round pick. So 8 picks total. 3 picks in the first 2 rounds. One of the picks in round 2 is very high. Obviously, the 1st-round pick is 6th overall. They're in big-time position. They could do well for themselves in this draft. Now, that said, it seems like I talk about this every year because I do, but then they continue to do the same thing every year, so I talk about it every year. There must be a fundamental shift and change in philosophy for this New York Jets organization come this year's NFL draft. Period. No excuses, no best player available bullshit. It is time to focus on offense early, often, repeatedly, if not potentially with every single pick. Because when you look back at the history of this team, every first-round pick that they've made since 2010 has been a defensive player. And every year since 2010, 2 of their first 3 picks has been devoted to a defensive player. All the while, their defense is still has issues, still has gaping voids. They've had notable busts in there, such as Dee Milner and Calvin Pryor and Kyle Wilson. Every year since 2010, each of their first-round picks, even the years they have 2 of them, they're defensive players. 2 of their first 3 picks every year since 2010 is a defensive player. How the hell do you not have an all-time legendary epic defense doing that? Because you don't know what the hell you're doing. And I understand last year that you're sitting at pick 6. Wasn't it pick 6? And Jamal Adams is there, and you take Jamal Adams. I understand that. But Jesus Christ, at some point in time, you have to invest on the offensive side of the football. Because clearly, burying all these picks on the defensive side of the ball is not moving the needle for this organization. All the while, continuing to not invest in the offensive side of the ball, or when you do, it's a 2nd-round pick on a Stephen Hill or a Christian frickin' Hackenberg. It's not hard to figure out why your offense stinks. Your defense isn't as good as it should be based off of the draft big investment made, and you're ultimately back picking in the top 6 of the draft again. What are this team's needs in the draft? If it is an offensive position, they need it. When you look at this team and you look at that offense, Everybody is replaceable. Everybody can be upgraded. But you're going to say, what about no? What about no? What about blowing out your smokestack? Every single position on the offensive side of the ball can be upgraded. Quarterback, wide receiver, offensive tackle, offensive guard, center, running back, hell, even tight end. Does it hurt to have two of them? No. And if you let ASJ go, obviously that need becomes more significant. The point being is every single pick in this draft, with one caveat, that would be if they had an edge rusher somewhere on day 2 that was just too good to pass up on, they might have to take him. But other than that, and even in that case, I still don't know if I go along with that. Every single pick needs to be spent on the offensive side of the ball. Period. There is no discussion. You can take your best player available crap and pound it. With that 6th overall pick, you find the best offensive player you can find. And if you get so lucky as for it to be a quarterback, then you take him. Then you devote the entire rest of your draft to surrounding him with as much help as possible in order to ensure every opportunity is made available for this guy to develop into potentially someday your franchise quarterback, period. If this organization takes a defensive player at number 6, Mike Maccagnan should be immediately fired. If they spend 2 of their first 3 picks on the defensive side of the ball again, that means that Mike Maccagnan clearly does not get it, clearly is just as bad as everybody in recent years that has come before him in that position. Whether it's Tannenbaum, Idzik, it doesn't frickin' matter. He should join them and be fired. Offense, offense, offense. It's the same crap I've been saying for this organization going into the draft the past 4 or 5 years, and every year they do the exact opposite thing. Maybe I should have come on here for the sake of Jets fans and for the Jets organization and said they needed to devote their entire draft to defense because you've gone so far. Why not go all the way, dipping balls deep, and go nuts? Then maybe they would actually draft on the offensive side of the ball. But if this team does not heavily invest on the offensive side of the ball in this draft, they are morons. They are idiots, and they deserve to continue to be irrelevant for years to come.